Wow, it's time for another show full of tips and ideas from the sales growth leadership expert, Dean Akers. Known for his experience in hyper-growing companies and creating cultures for high-performance teams, here's Dean.
So welcome to our 39th episode. I'm so excited that we're getting ready to hit our 40th episode. Again, we've been ranked number 1 on iTunes video. Last week we did get kicked back a little bit. We got kicked to number 2 by TED Talks. So we need everybody out there to really download and subscribe this week so we can get back up to number 1. I don't like being number 2. I'm getting a lot of emails, a lot of calls, and I really appreciate everybody reaching out. And again, the purpose of our visits is to help you become more effective and have higher successes with your position as either in sales or in leadership. This week, though, I've got kind of a near and dear to my heart since I've been doing this for now 40 plus years, and it's the art of cold calling. It tends to be a lost art. So I've had my ninjas doing it. So the last couple of weeks I've gone out cold calling again. And so I'm going to share with you some a little bit of advice on cold calling and some results. So I have my customer value list. We've talked about it. This is a list of all the customers or all the customers I can think of that could possibly use my services, or in the case of our ninjas, use the various company services. And what we do is we have this list, and we know that these customers, when they become a customer, will be an awesome customer. They're a customer that we would love to have. And quite frankly, they're a customer we've just talked about, but really never done much to get other than maybe do advertising, email blasts, all the typical stuff most people do today. That being said, I want to share with you my techniques for cold calling, and then I want to challenge you to go cold calling. Now, this is not a camera-based, this is what I would do, this is what I do. So if you'll remember on your customer value list, when you have a customer identified and you know what they're worth to you as a salesperson or you as a CEO of a company, the first thing you want to do is say they're worth X. In my case, my average customer is worth $100,000 annually to me. So when I look at that, I sit there and I go, now how do I get them? One thing I know for a fact is that in order to have a solid client, I need to be a minimum of 3 people relationship deep. And so that's one of the things I work towards. So how does cold calling work? Now I know I have a client I want. I know what their potential value is to me. And now I know I want to go get 3 people deep. My mission, and the mission for all my ninjas, is to get your butt in the car and go physically call on the account. Now, if it's an international account, I know that's a little bit more difficult. But quite frankly, if the PV is big enough, I have one of my clients that had a huge potential value client in Chicago, and they went up there and tried to cold call on the CEO. Obviously, the CEO wouldn't meet him. They were freaked out that they came from Florida and were willing to come cold calling on him. They called my client back, and they now set an appointment up in November where the CEO does want to meet him. Do you think that's going to be a different discussion or a different meeting if they had just kept reaching out with emails and praying and hoping? No, they physically went there. This is a big potential client, and I assure you they're going to get them. So I want to tell you a couple quick stories that'll put this in light. Years ago, I took one of my persons that didn't believe in it and wanted to challenge me and said, okay, and this was a VP of sales of one of my big potential clients. He said, I want to see you do this. So we got in our car. He and I got in the car, and I said, pick your biggest potential accounts. So he had this big potential account. He knew it would be impossible to get to him. At least that's what he thought. So we go driving around. We go to this client. We go to the gatekeeper or the gate, and this is an event-based type client. And we go there, and I walk up with my business card. You always carry your business cards with you. And I went up and I go, hi, I'm Dean Akers, I'm here to meet the CEO, The person looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, first off, you can't ever meet him without an appointment. Do you have an appointment? No, sir, I just want to introduce myself. Well, this isn't going to happen unless you have an appointment. Well, okay, can I write a note? So when you're on a cold call, you want to take your business card, take it out, write a note on the back, and then put an arrow on the front and hand them to them and say, would you please give it to them? The reason that's so important, when you write the note on the back versus saying, just tell them I stopped by or give them your business card, the note is critical because that gives you a higher odds that your business card's going to get in front of them. And when they see it, they'll look at it, flip it, look at it, flip it, and see your note. No big deal. It's about impressions. So the guy I'm with is kind of snickering under his breath because I've gotten blown out. He doesn't understand that really doesn't matter because when it's a big CV, we're going to spend the time it takes to get that client. However, I looked down about, 100 feet down the way, and there was a group of individuals out working on some of the equipment for this particular company. There was a one man out there that was an elder looking man. I don't know how old he was, but he was out there kind of running it. So I said, follow me. So we walked down and I introduced myself to the people out there, and the elder guy I started talking to, and this is equivalent to a gatekeeper. I asked the person, how long have you been with the company? And he looked at me and goes, I've been here 40 years. You've been here 40 years? He goes, yeah. And he told me, I said, tell me your journey. He said, well, I've been here since the company started. I started as a young man. I work up, I take care of these crews, I help get this going and stuff. And I go, and so you've been around here a long time. You probably know everything going on. And he goes, yeah, I know just about everything going on. And he goes, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I came here to meet the CEO today. You came here to meet the CEO? He goes, yeah. He said, I raised him. I go, really? He goes, yeah, he's third generation. I went to work for his grandfather, and I raised his dad, and now I'm raising him, and I'm getting him and keeping him straight. And I go, really? I said, that's so cool. Tell me about him. He says, well, he's a good young man. He's in his 30s. He's going to make a great man. He's just like his grandfather. I'm really proud of him and all that. And I said, man, I'd love to meet him. He goes, well, why didn't you meet him? I go, because I didn't have an appointment. He said, you know that whippersnapper, he's always about appointments. Come go with me. This man took me in the bowels of this building through this, what I'd call tunnel, with the guy I was with. We went, we walked through these tunnels, got on this elevator that was about the size of a closet. We rode up to the very top on this private little elevator. We got out in the executive wing. The guy walked me into the CEO's office and said, this is my buddy Dean. He wants to meet you. You can't make this up. So what happened was we got to meet him. And when we got to meet him, we got to visit him. He turned out he lived at a place where I kept my boat. We started talking, blah, blah, blah. He said, great, thanks for stopping by. You met the right man. He runs the company, which is the gentleman I had met. And we laughed and we left. And then I wrote him a handwritten note. We followed up. Next thing we know, 4 months later, we got the client. We got that client off a cold call. This particular company had been wanting to get that client for years, doing emails, sending postcards, all the junk we all do with our, quote, marketing. So we did it. The next story I'm going to tell you about is a client that was a big potential client from one of my companies. And they would never, ever do business with new type of vendors like ourselves. And so I started calling on them. And when I went and called on the gatekeeper, now I'm going to really emphasize this. You got to call on the gatekeeper. When I called on the gatekeeper, she goes, they won't see you, Dean. And I got to meet her. Her name was Paula, and I got to know her. Then I'd go by, and I just met Paula and got to know Paula. I got to know Paula. She had kids. I'd send her notes. I'm a big believer when you go on a cold call, send the gatekeeper a note. Ask them if they have a card. And then I found out she had been there like 15 years. Long story short, 6 months later, after just calling on her, being thrown out of this company every time, she called me one day and said, Tuesday night, where are you going to be? I said, wherever you need me to be, Paula. She said, I want you to show up at this little bar. I want you to walk in. All the executives are going to be there. I'll be there. When you walk in, act surprised like you just normally go there, and I'll go, wow, Dean, how are you doing? And I'll come give you a hug. Then I'll take you over and introduce you to everybody. Well, exactly what happened. I walked in, My competitors knew me. They could not believe I was at this private little party by accident, but I was there, quote, by accident. She took me over and introduced me to the head guys. We ended up striking up a dialogue. Long story short, they became my biggest client 7 months later. My biggest client in my company 7 months later. And led me, one of my reasons I was the fastest growing company back in the 90s with our company. So that was a total cold call. Now, I went cold calling this week. And it's just a reminder why I'm doing the show today. Every cold call I went on, the executive wasn't there. Every time I went in, there was a gatekeeper. I went into one particular one. I started talking to the gatekeeper. She's been there 20 years. 20 years. What did I know about the gatekeeper that had been there for 20 years? I knew, she knows, and anybody listening to this knows exactly what I'm saying. She knows everything. She knows the top vendors. She knows who everything, all the politics of the company, everything. She knows the back door, indoor, everything in the company. So I started talking to her. And as I talked to her, I found more and more cool things, which led to more and more questions. I asked her where she grew up. She told me about her son, what her son does. She told me about what her husband's retired now. Now, when I walked out, I put all that in my CRM. She will now be one of my contacts that I will, over the next 6-8 weeks, build a relationship with. When I walked out, I wrote her a card, one of my handwritten notes. I wrote her a card. Thank you for letting me introduce myself. I know what her son is into. Her son, in this case, is into farming, specifically strawberry farming. So I'm getting an article on strawberry farming that I'll send her in about 2 weeks. Then I'll go see her again, and I'll walk in, and she won't remember me, and I'll go, how's your son doing with strawberries? And she'll laugh, and we'll get to know each other. She's been there 20 years. When she decides that Mr. Dean needs to be the one that needs to meet the CEO and meet whoever decision makers are and decision influencers are, what is she going to do? She is going to make it happen. Lastly, one of my ninjas, he called on the gatekeeper 4 times, got thrown out. And one of our ninja missions is getting thrown out. We jokingly say, how many times did you have them tell you to get the F out of the office? He had gone in 4 times. I told him, go back your 5th time. It's Labor Day weekend. Go in on the Thursday. When she goes to throw you out, just say, all I want to do, come in and wish you happy Labor Day. He did it. She goes, that's so kind. She opened up, told about her grandkids, everything. 6 weeks later, he got the account. He got the account. Do you think that's because of his PowerPoint? Do you think it's because of his brochure? Do you think it's because of his schmoozing? No, he built a relationship. He was willing to get thrown out. He was willing to make those cold calls, and he was willing to work on going 3 people deep. So your message this week, get in your car. Take your top potential customers and go call on the CEO. Go call on the main person and get thrown out. Have them tell you to get the F out of there, and then take and be and build a little bit of relationship with that gatekeeper. Know that you will get the account when you're 3 people relationship deep and you've gotten to know those gatekeepers. So my message this week, get out, go cold calling. I do it, you do it. Find out the results. And more importantly, when you have the attitude of I'm going to get 5, get the F's out of here, it doesn't hurt you when you know brand rejection or anything. Just go make the calls. You're making calls on clients you know can do a lot of business, and you will be successful. So let's go out this week and see how many get the F out of here you can get, and let's make it happen, and let's watch you grow your business. Thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody downloading my podcast. I appreciate all the feedback I'm getting from everybody, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So let's go make those cold calls this week. Email me if you have any challenges, and I'll help you make it happen. Have a great week.
If you enjoyed this week's show, subscribe today to our podcast and send questions or thoughts to help@deanakers.com. Also, visit us at www.deanakers.com to listen to prior shows and view helpful videos. Also, great tips to download. Thanks again. See you next week.